Good morning, EntreGrowth community. I'm so grateful that you've chosen to join us on this beautiful Monday morning. Maybe it may not be beautiful outside where you are, but I hope that it is a beautiful day right here, and you're ready to get started with a powerful, powerful week. I've got something that I want to share with you this morning that shows us that even the smallest decision that we make has long-lasting impacts for generations and generations. And I can't think of anyone more suited to share this story than a gentleman named Andy Andrews. You may have heard of the butterfly effect before, and you probably have heard of it from the movie perspective, but I want you to look at it today from a real life perspective. So I'm going to share this video right now of Andy Andrews talking about the power of the butterfly effect.
Have you heard of the butterfly effect? The butterfly effect was a doctoral thesis written in 1963 by Edward Lorenz, and it was presented to the New York Academy of Sciences and laughed out of the place. It's crazy. The butterfly effect stated that a butterfly could flap its wings on one side of the world and set molecules of air in motion that moved other molecules of air that would eventually move other molecules of air that could eventually create a hurricane on the other side of the planet. The butterfly effect. It was nuts, but it was interesting. And because it was so interesting, it hung around forever in urban legend and movies and books until finally physics professors in the mid-90s proved the butterfly effect was accurate and viable, and it worked every time. And not just with butterflies either. It worked with any form of moving matter, including people. They gave it the status of a law. Just like the law of gravity, the butterfly effect is now known as the law of sensitive dependence upon initial conditions. And it works every time. See, Chamberlain is a human example of the butterfly effect. One guy who made one move 140 years ago whose effect still ripples through our lives today. And you are no less an example of the butterfly effect than Chamberlain was. Everything you do matters. Every move you make, every action you take matters not just for you or your family or your hometown. Everything you do matters to all of us and forever. I was in a hotel room a couple of years ago. This was before Peter Jennings died, and I was ironing the left sleeve of a white shirt and about to go down and talk to a group of people, and the TV was kind of halfway to me, halfway on, and Peter Jennings was doing that Person of the Week thing that ABC News, they still do it, but he was doing the Person of the Week where they highlight somebody and tell about what they... And while I'm kind of halfway paying attention, I hear him say, and so the Person of the Week for, and he gives the date, he said, is Norman Borlaug. And man, when he said Norman Borlaug, I put the iron down, I ran in front of the TV set, my jaw was around my knees. Norman Borlaug, I didn't know the dude was still alive. I knew who he was. I had written a book called The Lost Choice that tells the proof about how much a life matters, and I'd wrapped a story around it, and I'd done some research, and I'd found out about Norman. I had like 2 paragraphs in the book about Norman Borlaug. I knew who he was. They had calculated that his work, hybridizing corn and wheat for arid climates, his work through the years, the plains of Siberia, the Dust Bowl of Western Africa, our own desert Southwest, South and Central America, that his work, hybridizing corn and wheat for arid climates, had saved from famine the lives of over 2 billion people. The guy saved 2 billion lives. And for that, he was Person of the Week. It kind of aggravated me because I remember thinking, it's not Norman Borlaug. I was talking to the TV, it's not Norman Borlaug that did it. It was a guy named Henry Wallace. Henry Wallace was Vice President of the United States under Roosevelt. And a lot of people think, wait a minute, I thought Truman was Vice President under Roosevelt. Well, that's true. But remember, Roosevelt served 4 terms. he had 3 different vice presidents, and the middle one was the former Secretary of Agriculture, a man named Henry Wallace, who, while he was Vice President of the United States, used the power of that office to create a station in Mexico whose sole purpose was to hybridize corn and wheat for arid climates. And he hired a young man named Norman Borlaug to run it. And it was Norman Borlaug who won the Nobel Prize, and it was Norman Borlaug who got Person of the Week. But when you think about it, it was Henry Wallace who saved the 2 billion people, wasn't it? Really? Unless maybe it was George Washington Carver. You remember Carver, don't you? The peanut stuff? Here's one thing people don't know about Carver, is when he was 19 years old and a student at Iowa State University, he had a dairy sciences professor who on Saturday and Sunday afternoons would allow his 6-year-old little boy to go on botanical expeditions with this brilliant student. And it was George Washington Carver that took this little 6-year-old boy and pointed his life in a direction. It was George Washington Carver that took this 6-year-old Henry Wallace and put a vision in his life about plants and what they could do for humanity. It's amazing to think about it, isn't it? George Washington Carver flapping those butterfly wings with the peanut stuff. 266 things he developed from the peanut that we still use today. He flapped his butterfly wings with the sweet potato. 88 things he developed from the sweet potato that we still use today. And while nobody was even looking, he just flapped his butterfly wings a couple of times with a little 6-year-old boy and just happened to save the lives of 2 billion people and counting. So when you think about it, maybe it was Carver that should have been Person of the Week. Unless it would have been the farmer from Diamond, Missouri. A man named Moses had a wife named Susan. They lived in a slave state, but they didn't believe in slavery. Well, this was a problem for these psychopaths like Quantrill's raiders who came through farms and villages at night, destroying and killing. And one January night, Quantrill's raiders came through Moses and Susan's farm, and they burned the barn, and they shot several people, and they drug off a lady named Mary Washington who refused to let go of her infant baby, George. Now, Mary Washington was Susan's best friend. And because of that relationship, Moses sent word out immediately, and a messenger here and a message here, trying to create a meeting with Quantrill's raiders, and 2 days later he had it. And he took a black horse in the evening time, and then went several hours north to a crossroads in Kansas to be there at the appointed time, meeting 4 of Quantrill's raiders who showed up on horseback, carrying torches, with the flour sacks over their heads with the eye holes cut out. And there Moses traded the last horse he had left on his farm for what they threw him in a burlap bag. And as he caught it and they thundered off, he went to the ground, and there in that cold darkness with that white breath billowing out, he pulled out of that burlap sack a cold, naked, almost dead infant baby boy. And he jerked open his jacket and his shirts, and he put that baby in next to his skin and covered the child up, and he walked that baby out, talking to him, promising him that he would raise him as his own, telling him he would educate him to honor his mother, who they knew was already dead. And that was the night he told that baby he would give him his name. And that is how Moses and Susan Carver came to raise that little baby, George Washington. So when you think about it, maybe it was the farmer from Diamond, Missouri that saved the 2 billion people. Unless. And hey, you guys know we could do this all night. How far back could we go? I mean, really, how far back could we go to show whose move, at what time, at what point in history? How far back could we go to show who it really was who saved the 2 billion people? A number that continues to increase while we sit here. How far back could we go? And how far forward could we go in your life? How far forward could we go to show the lives that you'll touch. I mean, there are generations yet unborn whose very lives will be shaped and shifted by what you do tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, and the next, and the next. Because everything you do matters. Every move you make, every action you take, not just for you, not just for your family, not just for your hometown. Everything you do matters to all of us and forever.
Everything you do matters. Every day you have a choice to make a difference in your life, and by happenstance, the life of every single person around you, simply because of the choices that you make. In his book, The Butterfly Effect, which Andy Andrews wrote, he says, you have been created in order that you might make a difference. You have within you the power to change the world. You have within you the power to change the world. But I'm just Scott. I'm just Phil. I'm just Shirley. You have the power within you to change the world by the decisions that you make. You know, I was sitting, and I've shared this story before, but I was sitting in a master's of music class back when I was in college. And I didn't realize what my professor was talking about was essentially the butterfly effect. But what he said is, what you are doing has longevity and will far surpass any of your expectations, and you will make an impact far beyond what you even imagine, simply by making choices. You know, what we do every single day in the world of sales, in real estate, and in business, is we get to serve people. We get to provide experiences for people that they wouldn't have had without us. And the only people who can make sure that they have a great experience is every single one of us, because we get to control certain aspects of that environment. Does that mean it's going to be a perfect transaction? Does that mean it's going to be absolutely amazing every single time? No, because there are outside circumstances sometimes that we cannot control. But what we can control is how we react to them. We can control how we adjust in the moment to make sure that we're taking care of them. Every single one of us is a leader. Whether we believe we have the title or not, we are leading people. People are always watching us. People are paying attention to us. Maybe that's our kids. It's certainly the people who we're having transactions with. It's certainly the people who we're serving in our business by helping them to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. It's certainly the people who are on the other side of the transaction as well. You see, we look at this and we think that we're so small, but yet we're absolutely mightier than we can ever imagine. We have such a massive opportunity to leave a long-lasting impact on the people around us simply by serving them well. But serving others well doesn't start with just serving them well. It starts with serving yourself well. It starts with being true to yourself. It starts with being intentional about what you want to become and taking the actions and making the progress necessary in order to make it a reality. I'd love to tell every single one of you that we can all just sit back and naturally rise to greatness. However, it's called greatness for a reason, because you have to get over great things. You have to go through certain things in order to get what you've always wanted. You have to go through struggles so that you can learn from them in order to move forward. You know, I've always heard it said that without the bad times, we wouldn't realize how good the good times really are. We have to take in those moments where things aren't going so good, learn from them, and make adjustments to change them in the future. Are there things that we can't control sometimes? Absolutely. Absolutely there are. Yet, We can control the mindset. Remember, it's 90% of how you think and 10% of how you act. Did every single one of those people along the way that he mentioned in the butterfly effect have choices to make? Yes, they absolutely did. Did George Washington Carver have a choice to make about pouring into Henry Wallace when he was 6 years old? He could have said, I don't have time for you, kid. You can't go through the botanicals with me. I've got work to do. Instead, what he said is, yeah, come on. Let's see what you can learn. You're obviously curious. And that curiosity and the fact that George Washington Carver said, come on, let's go, and poured into him, even though it was for a short amount of time, led Henry Wallace to say, I think there's something that I can do to make a really big impact here. And because George Washington Carver did that, it led to him being vice president of the United States of America, which led to him making an impact on another individual who got credit for saving the lives of 2 billion people, preventing them from going hungry in a famine. I don't want any one of you to ever think what you are doing is small. What you are doing is great. It's far greater than you can ever imagine. And it starts with the choice for you every single day to choose to be a little bit better every single day. To choose to have grace when you could have been upset. To choose to have compassion when you could have chose anger. To choose to intentionally pour back and add value into the lives of the people around you, because when you do that, it's so much more fulfilling than just success. It's significance. It's leaving a significant impact on the lives of the people around you. Think about it like this. Have any of you guys ever served somebody who, for their whole family, they were the first person who ever achieved home ownership? Think about what that does for them. The feeling, they stand a little bit taller. They feel a little bit better. Their parents look at them in a much more proud way because of what they've done. And now they're creating a legacy for their children. And guess what? You get to be a major part of it, even though you don't realize it. So what are you taking away from our conversation today? Phil.
At the deepest level, every choice we make throughout every day has an effect far beyond what we can even imagine it is.
Yeah, it does. It really does. Picking up your phone and calling your database can have a massive impact. Picking up your phone and calling your database, as if you haven't gone and listened to that call that I did with Jenny Gallaudet, her picking up the phone and calling her database, just checking in, led to her finding out that a veteran wasn't doing well and was quite frankly contemplating ending his own life. And she connected him with someone else who she also knew in her database. And then that guy comes to her later and says, I don't know if you knew this, but you calling me and checking in with me and connecting me with those people saved my life. Y'all, what we do matters. It's not the real estate side of things, it's the relationship side of things. The relationships are so important. Relationships, like we talked about last Friday, relationships are life's greatest currency. Thank you, Phil. Anyone else? All right. Well, I appreciate every single one of you being here with us this morning. Have an amazingly powerful week. And remember, what you do matters. The choices you make today lead to the things you've always decided that you wanted, and you're going to have to get right outside of your comfort zone in order to make them a reality. I appreciate you. We will not have a live call tomorrow because I get to teach my favorite class in the whole world, Quantum Leap. So I will connect with you guys again live in person on Wednesday. Hope you all have an amazing day, and I will talk to you Wednesday. Bye.
Thanks, Scott.